Hello and welcome to Haman Nature. I am Adam Haman, and on this week's crossover with the great Bob Murphy, we are going to talk about what you probably expected to hear about last week, which is the horrible, horrific assassination murder of Charlie Kirk. The benefit of coming at it a little later than you might have expected is that we get to talk about not only the incident, but a lot of the backlash that has come from it. I think you're going to hear some things here that you hadn't considered before, and maybe hopefully get a little closure on something that was tragic and awful. Hi, Bob.
Hey, Adam.
So, anything happened this week?
It did, and to that end, I think we should explain to folks why our prior episode did not include any commentary on the Charlie Kirk assassination.
I think we should, yeah. You might have guessed after seeing the fact that this horrific thing happened, and we had an episode come out, and we didn't speak about this horrible murder at all. It's because we generally record on Monday, maybe Tuesday, and then the episode comes out on Thursday, maybe Friday. And I'm even more embarrassed because I pre-record some evergreenish episodes with my partner Tyrone on the Haman Nature show. And I had one come out Monday where we were taking Matt Walsh to task for some statist things he was saying on the Tucker Carlson show a month or so ago. And once again, didn't mention the horrific assassination. And so, sorry, folks, that's awkward. We feel bad about it.
I will say that it was perhaps humorous, some of you might think. In the comments of with YouTube on my end, when I released that episode, somebody chimed in and said, Bob, I love you guys, but the timing in this couldn't have been worse.
I know.
And so I replied and said, well, we could have released it on a Thursday, which was originally when it was supposed to drop, instead of waiting a day. That would have been worse.
That's true.
Right? So that's what happened, is we were getting ready to release it the day after, and we said, we got to at least hold off. And then we release it. So anyway, there's trade-offs. With the high production values you get with us here, that means there is some delay in the processing, which means it's difficult if some major event happens that we got to say, what do we do? Like, we can't tweak the recording. And so anyway, we just chose to wait a day, and hence it made it even weirder that we were talking about something even more obsolete at the time.
And
okay.
I don't know about you, Bob, but like when I heard about it happening in real time, and we didn't even know if Charlie Kirk was going to survive. Once you zoomed in and saw the shot, it certainly didn't look like he could. But, I mean, if you remember, it seemed like the whole country who was on social media was still trying to absorb the horrific images of that young Ukrainian girl who got her neck slashed and then bled to death on that Charlotte commuter train. And so we're all sort of reeling from that. And then this happens, also captured on video, and a certain segment of the population is just, I don't know, this is a big shock to absorb, and a lot of energy roiling around, and I just don't know what's going to come of it.
What was interesting to me, besides the shock, I got texted. I think it was my cousin was the one who first texted me and said, I think he said they shot Charlie Kirk, and I just didn't. It's funny. I think not funny, like ironic funny. I think he was also the front one that I told me about Trump, and in both cases, I thought, like, surely he must mean something else. Like, not literally someone just shot those two guys. And, they did it. So what was interesting, though, is my immediate reaction, I don't know if you had this one, was to get on Twitter.
Sure.
Like, to find out what's going on. Not, let me go check CNN or even Fox News. But no, it was to go to Twitter because I knew, not that everything on Twitter was accurate, but I knew that was the best place for me to go to find commentary that I thought this person might be wrong with or not lying.
Actually, I had a cheat code. Like, I needed to know what was going on, but I did not want to look on Twitter. But I have Jennifer here, and she was on Twitter, and she was just telling me everything that was happening as it was happening, and sending me links to this and that and the other.
Do you have her taste your food for you, too, just in case there's any foul play?
I mean, I don't feel like I need to reveal all the Haman family secrets, but yes, of course, Bob. Yes. Yes, I do. So I don't know where you want to start, Bob, but this was a whole big cataclysmic event, and the response, the ripples on Twitter are basically tidal waves. So there's a bunch of interesting stuff. Where should we start?
Yeah, and what we're going to do here, folks, is Adam and I talked about it, and this obviously is a big thing. And I know on my end, if I'm tuning in, listening to people's podcasts or whatever, that it's, unless I need to be, quote, taking a break from it, this is what I want to hear about too. So we figured, don't fight the crowd, that this is what people want to talk about. So of course we're going to be talking about the commentary at this point and the reaction to it, as opposed to, the obvious.
Yeah.
It's wrong to shoot people, especially just because you disagree with them politically.
You heard it here last, folks. It's
Yes.
wrong to shoot people when you
Yes.
disagree with them.
But that's not necessarily a plurality held view, apparently. So why don't we, I think where we can do some value add is, we got a few topics here, folks, but let's start, Adam, with the allegation. Stephen King made it, for example, then he took it down once people corrected him. I don't know if it's because he feared a lawsuit or he just, actually did the right thing just because it was the right thing. But people were saying, I don't know why everyone's getting so bent out of shape and saying how nice this guy was. I mean, he literally called for stoning gay people. Like, what the heck is this? Right. And so why don't we found a good clip here to explain the matter. And what I grabbed, just for context here, folks, is this is Kyle. Shoot, how do you say his last name? Do you know?
I haven't the slightest idea.
And this was from about a year ago. So I don't want to be like angering people unnecessarily. Like what the guy said was annoying enough, but this is from a year ago, this clip that we're playing of the commentary. So it's not like this guy was, maybe he was piling on even after Charlie got shot. But anyway, this clip that we're going to play is from about a year ago, just for context.
All right, here we go.
So Charlie Kirk and his gaggle of right-wing commentators here, they're going to get really worked up over LGBTQ stuff, and they are going to resurrect straight-up 1700s-style bigotry on this. Now, that might sound extreme. It might sound hyperbolic, but it is not. I'm going to play these videos for you, and then we're going to break it down. Here we go.
So she takes off the Miss Rachel costume and the uniform, etc., and she comes back and she's like, now I'm just talking as Rachel. And she goes, the reason I'm this way is because I'm Christian. And in the Bible, it says, love your neighbor. And really, I approach people in love. And if you're not doing that, I guess you're not really following the Bible. She didn't say that part, you're not following the Bible, but that was kind of the underlying piece there. So Charlie, what's going on with that?
Well, let's let her say it. 120, I'll respond, and then I got a dash.
I've shared prayers on here before and said, God bless. And that's because my faith is really important to me. And it's also one reason why I love every neighbor. In Matthew 22, a religious teacher asked Jesus, what's the most important commandment? And Jesus says to love God and to love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. There's no greater commandments than these. I believe it's mentioned 8 times, love your neighbor. So yes, everyone belongs, everyone's welcome, everyone is treated with empathy and respect. It doesn't say love every neighbor except. There are so many reasons I stand strong in love. I stand with everyone. That's who I am.
So this Miss Rachel person is very clearly the tolerant kind of Christian, the Martin Luther King kind of Christian, the Christian who genuinely and sincerely tries to be kind and loving to absolutely everybody, the good kind of Christian, the humanist and sympathetic and altruistic kind of Christian. Which, look, you call a spade a spade. It is very easy to get that interpretation from Christianity if you take Jesus in his good moods. It just is. But now these guys are going to proceed to attack this. Here we go.
I was just, to Jack's point, I'm dying to know, like, what do you think when Miss Rachel quotes scripture in that way?
I mean, Satan's quoted scripture plenty.
Yeah, it sure does sound a lot like Satan when she talks about loving everybody and being kind to everybody. Oh, that's right. That would be literally the polar opposite of Satan. Okay, let's continue.
It doesn't just say love your neighbor, though. It does say love your neighbor except, in a sense.
As yourself, but hold on. She's not totally wrong when she says,
yourself.
first of all, the first part is Deuteronomy 6:3-5. The second part is Leviticus 19. So you love God. So you must love his law. How do you love somebody?
Here we go, folks.
You love them by telling them the truth, not by confirming or affirming their sin. And it says, by the way, Miss Rachel, you might want to crack open that Bible of yours. In a lesser referenced part of the same part of Scripture is in Leviticus 18, is that thou shalt lay with another man shall be stoned to death.
Bruh. One more time. Here we go.
In a lesser referenced part of the same part of Scripture is in Leviticus 18, is that thou shalt lay with another man shall be stoned to death. Just saying. So, Miss Rachel, you quote Leviticus 19, love your neighbor as yourself. The chapter before affirms God's perfect law when it comes to sexual matters.
He said it affirms God's perfect law when it comes to sexual matters. So is that the perfect policy approach, Charlie? If God's law is perfect, and you just said stoning gay people to death is God's law, sounds like you support doing that. Sounds like you support stoning gay people to death. Sounds like you think that's a reasonable policy. Okay, look, I'm not crazy, am I? Isn't that exactly what's coming across here?
And then there's a second snippet.
Maybe can we respond to that first, and then we'll do the second one?
Yeah.
Yeah, so just there, because there was already a lot there. What's fun is we broke it up, folks, because what I was getting ready to do when I was grabbing the clip, and then I found him, is Kyle Kalinske, by the way. I think he's married to Crystal Ball. Does that sound right? Or was a year? Anyway. So anyway, come on, Adam. Go ask your wife. She knows. So anyway, I thought was going to happen, because I dug that up and found it, is I thought, I'm going to have to go, if that's all this Kyle Kalinske guy's going to play, and he's going to say, look, I mean, what else can we possibly think from that? And it is true. If you just watch that part, it does seem like he's saying that, right? And so you can understand. So partly I'm doing this to show people who saw the clip, and they're saying, what are you guys talking about? I saw him with my own eyes say that's where they're getting it from, right? So it's not that they're just inventing out of whole cloth. But I thought I was going to have to go find the original show where they had Kirk on, and then he was doing it to get the rest of the story, because I knew that's not what he believes, and then he was going to go on presumably to elaborate. But we didn't have to go find it. That Kyle himself, in the second clip that we're going to play for you here in a minute, folks, then goes on to elaborate and quotes Charlie Kirk, and it's crystal clear what Kirk's position is, and yet Kyle's still playing dumb. So anyway, so we'll do that in a minute. But just there was a lot there to unpack. So again, that Miss Rachel, she has like a kid show or something, and then during Pride Month, I don't think, in fairness, I don't think she was doing anything. I don't remember. I don't want to overstep, and then I say something wrong, and then people blow me up in the comments. But anyway, she was not being, her TV person, right? She was there talking as herself. I forget what the disclaimer was that she made, and I don't even know if she said that like to the kids, or she was just saying it to somebody else, or just releasing it on her channel. But in any event, her point was, Jesus was all about loving your neighbor and stuff, and so it's Pride Month, and I love everybody, and okay, that's who I am, and that's what it means to be Christian. And so it was a little bit tricky there what happened with Charlie. So he's saying, the same thing you're quoting, Leviticus 19, but earlier it talks about, if a man lies with another man, you stone him. The same book you're quoting there. That's a little bit tricky, because she was strictly speaking quoting Jesus, who was referencing that, right? Mm-hmm. So Jesus never said, hey, if you catch two gay guys, kill them. So, you could say that.
The New Testament is different than the Old.
Yes, and this gets really, and we'll wait, folks, for the second part that Adam will play, then I'll say some more stuff, Adam, about like how standard Protestants at least handle this kind of stuff. But anyway, I did want to note that in fairness to Ms. Rachel, it's not actually completely fair to say, you quoted Leviticus when it suited your purpose, Ms. Rachel, but then you ignored that. No, she was quoting Jesus, so there's that element. And then also, but to defend Charlie from Kyle there, when Charlie was saying, well, Satan quotes scripture too, and then Kyle's like, but not to again, it's the point there was, forget homosexuality, because that's so triggering, but it would be silly to say, like, if Kyle Kalinske pointed to some preacher who was caught bilking millions of dollars from his congregation, like he's buying yachts and stuff, while telling them he's using their money, their donations, to feed the poor. And then imagine somebody criticizes that and then goes through and finds places in the Gospels where Jesus, has extreme anger, calling, hypocrites and you brood of vipers to the religious leaders of his day. It would be kind of silly to say, no, Jesus said you should love your neighbor. So no, I love pastors who rip off their congregation. That's the Christian. That would be goofy, right? And so, if somebody quoted Jesus saying that, and then somebody else said, I think you're like Satan using scripture for an evil purpose, or to get somebody to do something wrong, or to condone it, it would be kind of goofy to say, no. See, if I quote scripture saying Jesus said to love your neighbor, how is that what Satan would say? Okay, so anyway, I don't know if you want to say anything else at this point, or you just want to play the second clip.
Oh, I thought you brought that whole clip up just so we could make fun of him for that misuse of the "let's call a spade" whole turn of phrase. But you just glossed right over that.
There was so many things I had to keep track of. I don't like his hair, but I guess I really can't. At least he has some, right?
Well, the camera sure does, though. Dreamy. All right, let's play the second clip from the same thing.
Much wiggle room from there, bro. He's saying the proper way to deal with gay people is to stone them to death because God's law is perfect and God says stone gay people to death. By the way, who are we kidding? Like I said, the Miss Rachel interpretation of Christianity is legitimate, it's altruistic, it's humanistic, it's all the good things, right? There is also a brutal and disgusting interpretation of Christianity, and there's also just broad picture here, macro view, it's massively contradictory, right? It says eating shellfish is an abomination in the Bible. Has Charlie Kirk ever had crab, lobster? Because if he did, he's committing a sin just as bad as a man laying with a man, according to the Bible, right? By the way, I'm not done. I got more. Here we go.
How do you love somebody? You love them so much to correct their error.
Yeah.
And so let's
Error. It's an error.
just, take the pride conversation out because people think it's an identification, which it's not, it's just sexual behavior. But it's
So gay people aren't gay? It's just, they're straight, but they're just doing a gay act. It's just sexual behavior. Is that really what you believe at this late date?
if you meet an alcoholic or you meet a drug addict, do you affirm their struggle? No. You say, you're better than this. Let's get you free from that. Let's get you free from that activity.
God, this is so childish.
Okay, so in case it's the obvious people, like I said, to me, it's crystal clear what Charlie Kirk's position was. Is he was saying, just as, he obviously nobody would watch that and say, oh, so Charlie, you're saying if you see a drug addict or an alcoholic, we should stone them to death? Because that's what you're saying, that's how you should handle it, right? And that's obviously not what he's saying. So just in case people are getting like, what Kirk was saying is, no, the Old Testament clearly taught lying with another man is a sin. Now, back then, yes, they recommended capital punishment for it. Jesus doesn't think sinners should be killed. He showed us, a higher form of dealing with sin. But that doesn't mean it isn't sin anymore, right? So that's his position. Again, this stuff gets real complicated, and different Christians might give different nuances. But in terms of stuff like, what about eating shellfish? Well, the Old Testament also says, thou shalt not commit murder or kill, right? Does Kyle think that now, like, killing is on the table because Jesus overturned all of those bad, when God was mean and now Jesus is nice, and so killing is cool? That's not what it means, right? The specific dietary things that was specifically handled in the New Testament, right? That Paul and Peter had some words about that, and that that is addressed. It's not just, oh yeah, we used to do this crazy weird thing, but now it seems like Christians can eat pork, and what's up with that? Like that part was specifically addressed, right? So anyway, again, this is a tricky thing, but the other main element of this, where again it's not just making up stuff and like, oh no, because our society changed or whatever. I mean, there's a specific incident where the religious authorities bring a woman caught in the act of adultery before Jesus, and they say she was caught in the act. Moses said we should stone her. What do you say? Now, what's interesting about that is they thought they were trapping him, and if it really were just a common occurrence that they were stoning people every Tuesday, then why would that have been controversial, right? Why would that be a trap to him? Because they wanted to see, is he actually going to recommend that technically we should stone her to death? Let's see if he actually, has the cojones to say we should do that, right? That would have been surprising to people, right? So even right there, even in that story, you get a sense that, wait a minute, it's not as cut and dry as like, Kyle's saying there. But what does Jesus do? He says, let him who's without sin cast the first stone. And then everyone just walks away. And then he looks to the lady and says, is there no one left to condemn you? And she says, no one, sir. And he says, neither do I. And then he says, go and sin no more. Okay, so the whole point of that story is Jesus never said, oh, hey, who hasn't, slept with a married man before?
Wasn't the point. Yeah.
Right, that's not what he was doing. Okay, so with all this, I'm saying, yes, Charlie Kirk does think homosexuality is a sin, right? And if that bothers people, and I get why it would, okay. But he absolutely, clearly in that passage or in that video was not saying, and that's why if I had my way, we would be stoning them all to death. That's clearly not what he was saying.
That's a very good point, Bob. And what annoys me about analysis, quote unquote, like this is, yeah, you can pour through the Bible and, twist yourself into pretzels trying to figure out, ways to interpret phrases and then paste those phrases on people you don't like because they say they love the Bible and demonize them. And you can, take this interview and decide you want to hear it a different way than the way, obviously, Charlie Kirk meant it. Or you can just watch the way the guy lived his life. I mean, after hearing that accusation, I clicked twice on my computer and saw examples of Charlie Kirk greeting gay people by welcoming them into conservatism. And he's good friends with Dave Rubin and a bunch of other gay people. Obviously, he doesn't, he wasn't just sitting there on his microphone in these college campuses with a pile of stones, hoping one of them showed up so he could hurl rocks at him.
Right.
I mean, that's just insane. If you want to see what a person thinks about how to treat people, watch them interact with people.
Yeah, and in fact, it's not just like, my understanding is that there were some, hardcore Christian types who thought Charlie Kirk was being too wishy-washy, like, oh, he just wants to get the gays to vote Republican, so he's being nice to them. You know what I mean? Like, in other words, they thought he was being too friendly. And then also, I don't think we're going to play it here, right? But there was a great clip of Kirk floating around about the Whatever show,
Right.
The one where they, the upstanding Christian family values guy has a bunch of girls on showing cleavage and, berates them for an hour or whatever that show is. Yeah. But anyway, Charlie Kirk was the guest one time, and it is like amazing. Like he's sitting there talking to the women, and and I think if you're doing this and this is how you're making a living, I think God has a better plan for you. And I know that sounds preachy, and you can see them like they're actually like, oh. Like
I actually have it here. If you think it's worth playing,
go ahead.
I can play it. All right.
Yeah, especially because I'm doing my Charlie Kirk impression, and then I have to do the OnlyFans girls impression. So God,
nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see that. All right.
The market has
just
spoken.
a second.
For my life, and every day is a new day, and it's a hopeful, beautiful life ahead of you. And God loves every single one of us. We're all sinners. And thank you guys for a respectful conversation, even though we see things very differently. And if you're engaged in the creation of that content, I think God has a better plan for you. I know that might sound preachy and not what you want to hear, but maybe you'll have an encounter with God, and Jesus loves all of you, and He can transform your life. He transformed my life, and every day is a new day, and it's a hopeful, beautiful life ahead of you. And God loves every single one of us. We're all sinners, and Jesus died.
You've
for
definitely
us.
been the most respectful one that I've seen.
Well, thank you. That's very. Very kind, and I can tell you it's not me. If it was me, I'd be yelling and screaming. It's the Holy Spirit. It really is. I know it might sound silly, it might sound cliche, but Jesus has gone to work on my life. And so God bless you guys. Thank you for a great discussion.
Charlie, thank you for coming.
So, when people say, like, he's a nice guy, whatever, and then people are freaking out about him and saying he deserved to get shot, that's the guy we're talking about here.
Right. Yeah, he seems to be pretty well liked, even though... it's something to be able to go in and say, I disagree with your life choices. I pray for you to see the light and change your ways. I think you'll be happier if you do. That's a difficult message to get across without coming across like a jerk.
You know how else you can be happier if you do something?
And not come across like a jerk? Why, Bob, I think you're talking about the Swan Brothers, our sponsor, our crossover sponsor. Say something nice about this glorious company, Bob.
Yes, so the sponsor we have for these crossover episodes, folks, is the Swan Brothers. They will take merchandise, T-shirts, ball caps, coffee mugs, pens, what have you, anything you want, really, and they will put your text on it, a logo. And the point of this is if you have some kind of event coming up that you want to promote, if you have a business and you want to just create merchandise in terms of advertising, get it out in the community, this is the place to go. It's very convenient. What you can do is work with them and set up an online store where you have all the different options. Like if you're going to have a big event, your company's going to do something a few months out, you set up the online store, you tell the employees, and they can go and they can pick, like, oh, yes, I'm an extra large in this color and blah, 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 and get the merchandise done that way. So they've been around for a while. Adam, you want to say anything about them?
Yeah, the quality of the merch is great. We talked about high-end stuff a little while ago. They also do wonderful stuff for schools, churches, big companies, and fundraising. And the quality of the merch and the swag is amazing, but they're also really well known for building these beautiful online stores that are super functional, customer friendly. With just one URL, you can have multiple different stores, like for different athletics programs. You can have stuff for employees, stuff for the team, separate tabs for an upcoming event, homecoming or something that you want to fundraise off of. So they really integrate everything for both you and the people you want to wear your gear and buy your merch and your swag. And once it comes, it is just the best quality. I cannot recommend them highly enough. It's theswanbrothers.com/cross. to honor these lovely crossovers of ours, Bob.
That's right. So again, folks, theswanbrothers.com/cross. Check them out.
Amen. All right.
So going along with people misquoting, or I guess there you could say was taking out of context quote, but there's another example that was floating around that was not taken out of context. It was literally a wrong quotation, and it has to do with affirmative action, and in particular, let's see, Karen Ataya was a writer for the Washington Post, and she was fired. And here's Lori Garrett commenting on that and says, the Washington Post fired Karen Ataya because she quoted Charlie Kirk saying, quote, "Black women do not have the brain processing power to be taken seriously. You have to go steal a white person's slot," end quote. She added no comment, merely an accurate quote. Okay, so you would think with all this stress, like in the controversy and whatever, and then this journalist losing her job, and this lady saying, no, it was an accurate quote, and you would think the quote was accurate. Would be my takeaway from that. But no, it wasn't. And it was amazing to see how many people were passing that around. Like I saw it, like, you know what I mean? Like you kind of do like a telephone game and trace it back when you'd see art. Like there were like Newsweek articles, things talking about controversial right-wing podcaster shot, opinions vary, that kind of stuff. And you go in and see like when they're trying to give a list of the most inflammatory things he's said. And that, one of them was the stoning gay people. And then another one was, and he said, and they had quotation marks, black women do not have the brain processing. And so when you see Charlie Kirk in some settings, like he was with those women on that show that we just played for you, you're like, wow, that seems like a pretty angry thing for him to say. And so you go into his show, and in fairness, he is more boisterous on his show. Okay.
Sure.
So anyway, you get the point. But if you go in and look through it, we don't have the full clips and everything because we got to economize on time here, folks. But what happened is he was referring to three specific black women who admitted that they got to where they were because of affirmative action. And they were people that Charlie Kirk did not think were smart. And so, or talented or whatever, meritorious, and that should have gotten to the high positions they got. And so he said their names, or he's referring to them, and said, we know you don't have the brain processing power to be taken seriously. So by taking their specific names out and putting in black women, that's completely changing what he was saying.
Right.
All right. And for the people who would say, it's the same thing, and some people would say, well, no, what he actually said was even worse. It was like, oh, so this guy that you're glad got shot, you were doing him a favor, giving him a solid, and you were trying to tone down his actual quote to make him sound less bigoted? No, I think it's the other way around. I think you did it that way because you knew if he said the words that you put in quotation marks, that would be worse than what he actually did say. Now, just real quickly on this, I can see how some people would think, oh, come on, you're being pedantic there. It's not really, because look at the whole point of his screed there was he was against affirmative action. And then when three women said, I'm where I am because of affirmative action, and he said, right, because the only way you would be there is because you know the brain problem, you stole a white guy slot or white person. Someone might say, yeah, he didn't literally say those words, Bob, but I mean, isn't that kind of the logical deduction? And no, it isn't. And here's why. Because if there is an affirmative action policy in place, that doesn't mean every single black person who is employed shouldn't have that job, right? That does not follow.
Of course, yeah, of course.
Right, to make something that, in a bygone era would make me being accused of racism, but now everything's so crazy, I'm not worried about that, is if they had affirmative action for black people in the NBA, that wouldn't mean, so therefore Michael Jordan stole a white guy's slot, right? Does everyone see how that works? So just because Charlie Kirk is opposed to affirmative action does not mean he believes every single black person is unqualified at their job. What he is saying, though, and why he's against it, is he's saying some black people who should not have particular spots were put there because of affirmative action. And how do you know? Because what that would mean is if you took away the affirmative action, they wouldn't get that spot. Whereas Michael Jordan would be playing basketball with or without affirmative action for black people in the NBA, right? And so his point was, when particular black women come forward and say, the only reason I'm here is because of affirmative action, he's saying exactamundo. That's my point. Right?
That's a great one. Okay. And I want to tell a little story I saw just earlier today on the exact same topic. Charlie's at a campus, and a black student comes up to the microphone and pulls out his phone and says, "Hey, Charlie Kirk, I got this here quote you said. I want to take you to task for it. You said if you see a black pilot, you just sure hope he can fly that airplane. And what do you think about that?" And Charlie said, "Yeah, I said that." And the guy couldn't believe, he's standing by the statement. And he says, "Yeah, if there was no DEI program, I wouldn't think that at all. But there is a DEI program such that these companies are mandated to hire a certain number of minority people and female pilots at the expense of merit. And once you sacrifice anything, or once you sacrifice merit for anything, it's just a mathematical fact. The quality of the people involved have to go down." And he brought up the NBA example. There's 75% of the NBA is black. What if a DEI mandate came in and said you have to have 50% white players? Do you think the quality of play would be the same, or would the quality of play go down? Because all of a sudden you're selecting for something other than skill at playing basketball. It has to go down. Same with flying airplanes. And it just goes to show people who just want to excuse themselves for feeling pleased that a young man and father and husband was murdered. They have to twist the guy's statements all around to turn him into some kind of a devil so that it's okay to hoot and holler for the man's blood.
And just on that point, just to expand on that, so that's actually, I have heard people say that who really is also hurt by affirmative action policies are the people of the target, the groups you're ostensibly helping.
Of course they are.
Who don't need it, right? Because then, someone who actually should be there now, a bunch
now
of
looked on
guys,
with suspicion.
Yeah. Right, well, you're only there because of that, when no, they're there, Thomas Sowell,
Yeah,
I think I'm better at capital theory, but anyway.
You'd like to think that.
He wrote some good books. Right, so there's that element. And then also, too, something that I think actually it was either Walter Williams or Thomas Sowell that I read this first, and pointing out just the perversity of this, what ends up happening, like on colleges, for example. If every college has an aggressive affirmative action program where, just statistically speaking, every black student ends up in a school that's harder than what they should have been in, then except for the ones that are at the very top, who would have gone to Harvard or anything anyway, and there's nowhere else you could go, you're hurting everyone else downstream, right? Because now somebody who would have been, a 4.0 student at a mid-tier university, now they get into Harvard and they're getting C's because, they shouldn't be in Harvard.
Yeah, there's two ways to solve that problem. You either torture that poor kid, young adult, or you make Harvard, a crappier institution. I think they chose the latter, actually.
Right, because that's what happens too. Then once you do that, and you shunt everybody up, then you look at the disparity in the grades. You're like, oh, geez, Harvard has a bunch of racist professors because look at the black students are all, disproportionately doing worse, and so it must be the curriculum is biased or something.
Yeah, and I don't want to go too far afield of the Charlie Kirk topic, but it does seem a little bit stupid to embrace racism to solve racism. That just can't be right, can it?
Even
what
the
else?
good Christian Martin Luther King said things to that effect. And he was
The good Christian.
He'd endorse Jesus when Jesus was in a good mood. Folks, let's take a break from the action for this important announcement. If you care about your liberty and your financial freedom, you need to hear this. From October 10th through 12th, Mikkel Thorpe, host of the Expat Money Show, is bringing together top experts from around the world for the Expat Money Online Summit, and it's completely free to attend. You'll learn how to legally protect your wealth, secure second residencies and citizenships, reduce your tax burden, and own property abroad, all to safeguard your freedom. This year's focus is Latin America, where opportunity is booming. Argentina is shifting to free markets, and as an aside, word on the street is that Milei recently told his top lieutenants that they should go read my booklet, Chaos Theory. True story. That really happened. El Salvador is undergoing a dramatic transformation, and Panama and Paraguay are offering simple residency programs. A Plan B is no longer optional, it's essential. So reserve your free ticket at expatmoneysummit.com. That's EXPAT moneysummit.com. expatmoneysummit.com for your free ticket. Do it today.
Let us talk about another one of these videos you selected for us. It's not on a delicate subject. I think it's about Israel. Do you want to motivate the clip, or shall we just
Sure, yeah.
dive
So
in?
here, and I think I included a little bit of Glenn Greenwald just because I feel funny grabbing clips from him that I want to give some love and show people, where we got it from. But yeah, it was the point of this episode, and we'll link to it in the show notes page. But after Kirk's assassination, Netanyahu was just doing the circuit, talking about like, oh, what a loss, and I had him on the phone, and we were, I invited him out to Israel, and sadly he won't be able to, accept that invitation now, and and he was always the staunchest ally, and there was a lot of stuff that people are pointing out behind the scenes too. We don't have any clips, but I would point people. Max Blumenthal was just on Judge Napolitano's show. That would be September 15th as we're recording this. That one, if you want to check that out, just explaining that no, there was a lot of evidence that Charlie Kirk, even though yes, he loves Israel, especially given his religious views, but he was growing more distant from the actions of Netanyahu's government. And so anyway, this is just one clip to
Before I lose my little thought here, I just want to chime in and say I do not think that Bibi Netanyahu is a very nice person. I thought his jumping into the media so quickly to make hay out of this was just so cynical and opportunistic. He was speaking for Charlie Kirk after he's dead, talking about how his interests and Israel's are just united at the hip. There's no space between them, and obviously that's not the case. He was, he just invited Dave Smith to a huge Turning Point event, to discuss the war there and the pros and the cons. He obviously wasn't just single-minded about it, and I think in the last several months he was changing his mind a little bit about what was going on in the Middle East. But because that's true, I've seen an awful lot of people on social media leaping to the conspiracy theory that therefore Israel didn't want to have this megaphone of an influential voice starting to talk smack about Israel, so they must have killed him. And I just want to say, late but early, that I think that's a ridiculous theory, because it's an incredible risk, risk alienating everybody in the United States over something so careless and reckless if it got back on you. And more importantly, how in the world would any government agency, even the vaunted Mossad, how would they control an asset like this 20-year-old kid or 22-year-old kid or something? It's unmanageable. So I'm not buying that conspiracy theory.
Yeah, well, I guess we can circle back to that part as well. On that, all that stuff, it's the fact that the kid's dad apparently turned him in, and you can go and who his family, you know what I mean? Like if it was just some random guy that the FBI said, oh, we got him, then I would be like, what the heck? Whereas with this one, it's anyway, you get my point that because the kid's dad, and it's not like a bunch of people are coming forward and saying, we've never heard of this family. This family doesn't exist,
just dropped
but
out.
Maybe they are, and I'm just not
out of
hearing
the sky.
them. So,
yeah, I had the same thought, and I was so relieved that they that they caught the shooter, what appears to actually be the shooter. Because can you imagine? It was enough of a gut punch that this guy got assassinated as it is, but if somehow they didn't catch the guy, or it looked like they framed up some rando, I think that would have, as bad as it was, that would have been 10 times worse. Anyway, let me quit derailing this great Glenn Greenwald clip and.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, part of why we're showing this is just like how, even though we were against the Stephen King interpretation about that, we were showing. Yeah, so likewise here. I mean, there's a ton of stuff here for the people who do want to have those theories. Like they're not just inventing. But anyway, this, for whatever end you folks want to put to this, go ahead.
Oh yeah, exactly. You're not anti-Israel. You don't wish them harm. You're not, like cheering on Iran.
No, I support Israel. I think they're our ally. I want them.
But you would be called an anti-Semite by some people for saying this.
And I think that's ridiculous. I don't hate Jews because I think a nation should defend themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, I think that's the most ridiculous thing ever.
I feel like it's becoming like the word racism. Like, we just disagree with them, so we just have to call them a name. I don't think they're actually anti-Semitic. I think people just can't agree with them and they can't prove them wrong, so they just throw a word out and be like, "You're anti-Semitic because you think that we should stop sending our money there."
Something that.
Oh my God! Hallelujah! I didn't realize. I forgot that guy made that point. So true. He's saying like we spent all these years criticizing liberals who just scream racist and anybody disagrees with them. But now I'm watching all these conservatives scream anti-Semite the minute you question whether the U.S. should be supporting Israel. And you can see Charlie Kirk being very sympathetic to that view, saying, yeah, just because you don't want the U.S. financing Israel anymore doesn't make you an anti-Semite.
I see amongst the people I'm around, I do see more like general disdain towards, just being honest, Jewish people.
That's correct.
Just because they're constantly being told that you hate Jews. And it's like, fine. If you're going to say I hate Jews over and over and over again, like, if I'm going to be convicted of the crime, I might as well do the crime. I fear the same thing happens with all the talk of race. The more we talk about it, the more we bring it up, the more racism actually happens.
This is like, I try to tell, thank you for saying this, like, because like, I'm trying to tell these people and they're like, we must get more aggressive. And so like, let me ask a question. If we were to remove, like if people said what Tucker said is anti-Semitic, I don't hold that view, but it's like a lot of people on Twitter are like calling us out and like, whatever, that's not going to happen. But if we were to cancel Tucker, would anti-Semitism increase or decrease?
I think increase, because that means any supporter of Tucker Carlson's statement therefore makes them anti-Semites.
An association, 100%.
Exactly.
But the binary that's presented is that if you don't passionately talk about it, you are a hater. That's probably destructive for everybody involved. So for me, I'm trying to find this new path, which is, I love Israel. I visited there. My wife and I had the best experiences ever. I saw where Jesus rose from the dead and he walked on water. But also, I'm an American, and I represent a generation that can't afford anything, and that we are like flooded with illegals, and no one speaks English, and our hospitals are clogged. I think we need to have the prudence to reject the Jew hate. Like, okay, we're not going to put up with that. That's dumb. But also, if you call everyone an anti-Semite, if they don't take a puritanical view of the Netanyahu government, then I think it's bad for everybody.
And on that, do you want to maybe bring that tweet up or read that tweet?
Yeah.
About him talking about, just to show people, in case this is a side of him that wasn't on your radar.
You stepped on my line, though. I was going to say, anti-Semite says what? Yeah, this was a tweet Charlie Kirk sent out early in April of this year. It's going unnoticed because so much other news is happening, but the war drums are beating again in D.C. The warmongers worry this is their last chance to get the white whale they've been chasing for 30 years, an all-out regime change war against Iran. A new Middle East war would be a catastrophic mistake. Our military stockpiles are depleted from 3 years of backing Ukraine. Our effort to reshore manufacturing has only just begun and will take years to bear fruit. War would worsen our already immense deficit and national debt. Iran is larger than Iraq, Syria, and Afghanistan combined. A war would not be easy and could easily become a calamity.
Yeah, so like I say, that stuff wasn't on my radar until, after he got shot, and then people were pointing out that, he was not, he was pivoting. And at first I thought, oh, come on, that's just, there's a certain group of people that anytime, if there's a bad thunderstorm, Israel did it somehow. And
well,
and so that's kind of what I thought. But then as I was reading, I was like, oh, there's, if you wanted to make a case, there's some stuff here that he really was objectively turning, when again, this isn't, Scott Horton comes out against the Israeli government, news at 11. This is Charlie Kirk coming out. And you'll notice there too, he wasn't just saying, on a tactical matter, I disagree. I don't know if we have the troops strike. He's calling them warmongers and stuff and talking about their white whale. Like, it's very disrespectful to the people who are pushing the war. And this is back in April, right? So we're right when it, quote, mattered in terms of, ginning up support. So
are you trying to say that Melville thought there was something wrong with Ahab?
I can't get inside somebody's head. I could just put quotations around and attribute it to.
That's right. That's how we do.
Yeah. Okay. I forgot if we can circle back, if that's all right. And,
we can.
Sorry, do you want to say anything else about the
No.
stuff? Okay. About the cancel culture stuff, I totally forgot that, that's now a raging thing.
Right.
And so here I do have a few thoughts. I'll rattle them off, and I'm curious what you think. Okay, so in the beginning, unequivocally, the people that right-wingers were saying should be fired were not saying, I disagree with Charlie Kirk's views on homosexuals. That's not what they were saying. They were openly cheering his death and saying, I'm glad he got shot. Okay, and then there were also examples of things like a pediatric nurse saying F his children, right? Because people were talking about, he was a father, and then he's leaving behind. And so, you forget politics, just in general, if you're saying, do you want a nurse dealing with kids who thinks someone's father's political views should affect the welfare of the children? Well, what if, like, she sees, someone's driving a Tesla or something? Is she going to do something to your kids? Because, right? So I'm just saying there's that element. And so it's not just, standard, cancel culture. And the people, there were all sorts of articles I was tweeting out when this was going down, like saying conservatives are, taking stock of the situation and are getting their enemies fired just for sharing political views, something that they previously derided as cancel culture, right? Is it, again, no, they're not being fired for their political views. They're being fired for openly celebrating an assassination. All right. So there's that element. Another thing too that occurs to me is it was sort of I don't know what facetious back, like in the cancel the prime of cancel culture when the left was doing it, and some guy would make an off-color joke, and then the people would get him and dox him, and they would like tweet his employer and be like, I think, Dunkin' Donuts, you would be surprised to learn that Jim Smith here actually made a joke about black people, right? And so clearly there was an implied threat that you better fire him or we're going to go after you. All right. Whereas, at least in some cases with what was going on here, is I could see it being just as a public service saying, hey, Mr. Business Owner, do you know that there are some people working for you that are openly on social media celebrating murder? Like, maybe you don't want those people, not meaning, and you better, or else we're going to boycott you, but just saying, you know what I mean? Like, if I were a business owner and there were people working for me who think murder is cool, I probably don't want to hire them or keep them working for me. Like, that's something that my screening process missed. I don't hire those who cheer murder. And then last thing I'll say here, Adam, is that kind of flowing from that, it's not so much even, we're trying to say, if somebody is so tone deaf and so dumb in that sense, not meaning that they lack intelligence, that they don't realize it's probably not a good idea to openly say on social media, I am for murder, then there's probably other things that your judgment's off too. And I can't imagine an organization, like you're not even good to work for the mob. It's like, no, dude, keep your mouth shut. You know what I mean? Like, you say, I made him an offer he can't refuse. You don't say, I put a gun to his head and that's why you signed. Like, no, you got to be discreet.
Yeah, you use the code words.
Right. So I'm saying, like, for all these reasons, like these people are bad employees. It's okay. I'm sorry. One last thing, Adam, then I promise I'll shut up. I did finally see the break like yesterday where there was some example of, I don't think she was fired, but like people were calling for this woman to be fired from the military. Actually, people were questioning. And if you went and looked at her tweets, she did not. She started out and said, while I don't condemn the shooting and I don't see why we're holding this guy up as such a good, fine Christian man. He had many hateful views, something like that, right? And so and people were targeting her and saying that's inappropriate for the Marines or whatever she was. So I can say I predicted this. I did predict it, but I didn't do it publicly, so I can't be credited for it. But I thought, yes, it's going to start out like this. And then eventually we're going to run out of the low-hanging fruit that the left is celebrating murder are going to realize, oh, I should stop doing that. They're going to take down their tweets. And then the enraged mob is going to be looking around and then see somebody who it's borderline. Like they're not celebrating, but they're also not crying that he got shot. And they're adding, and he was a huge bigot too. And that's like, well, should that person be fired? So anyway.
Yeah, I think most people, when they're talking about the cancel culture thing, I just don't think they're addressing things on the right axis almost. Like, I'm an enormous fan of the freedom of association, and I can certainly see if you own a business and somebody points out to you that your public-facing customer service rep turns out to be a lunatic who's on social media celebrating that somebody got assassinated, you might not want that person to be holding that job in your industry, and I totally get that. And just on a personal level, I don't think Bob made a vaguely off-color joke 5 years ago rises to that level. But, these are just my personal feelings on the matter. But the whole thing about the cancel culture thing that we all went through for several years, it wasn't even just a mob. I mean, you had these sorts of things going into DEI and ESG scores that had the government pressure on the subject. You get thrown out of government pension funds indexes or whatever as your company, or you could get you might get debanked, if you got on the wrong side of one of these mobs. So it wasn't even just an organic public boycott movement. It had the force of government behind it on several different dimensions. And so not only do I think that sexist or racist joke is not the same as celebrating somebody gets shot in the throat because you didn't like what he said. Not only are these things just orders of magnitude different, the one on the left had government behind it, and that's an orthogonal difference. It makes it changes everything.
Right, and because another good slew of examples where people are getting kicked off of YouTube and Facebook and whatever, and so it's not like Stefan Molyneux was working for Arby's and then somebody went and some people think he should have been working there. But, can you imagine trying to order from him and just how analytical he would get with you?
It would just take forever. That's not an order. That is not an order.
Would you roast me? Anyway, so there is that element. And again, you could, at the time people were, this is free market, blah, blah, blah. But then as we learned, later it was confirmed. People had their suspicions that no, actually the government was leaning on them. So you're right. In practice, it was way different. But you're right. But even just superficially, just again, the idea that, because they found, something he said 12 years ago, and now he's going to lose. Like that's what people were talking about. And again, it was, to me, a big element of it was the concerted effort of the mob that we are going to punish you, business owner, if you don't do this, as opposed to this one where I think in many cases the employers probably were genuinely like, whoa, what, you said that? What, are you out of your mind?
Dancing and singing, celebrating somebody's murder, and then posting it on social media, that's civilizational destruction stuff. Mm-hmm. That's not a bad joke. That's not crass comment.
And I meant to say, too, with that journalist, for a journalist to take quotation marks and put words in between the two that the person didn't say in, the point of which was to defame someone who had just been murdered, that's kind of relevant to the job, right? And Alex Tabarrok was decrying the cancel culture and saying, this is just, what, I thought we were against this. And I said, you can call this cancel culture if you want, Alex, but it's not the same thing. And then we were going through it and somebody chimed in, I think it was Rufo actually, and then Alex was talking about, like, you don't understand the Western tradition of the rule of law and J.S. Mill. And and I asked him, Alex, if an academic gets in professional trouble for plagiarism, did we not understand John Stuart Mill? I mean, he's being punished for his words and what he wanted to write? Yes, because if your job is an academic, you're not supposed to plagiarize, right? And so if you're a journalist, you're not supposed to make up fake quotes and attribute them to people while you're defaming them after they just got shot. That's just kind of not good job performance.
That's what journalism used to be, and that's what a quotation used to mean, but they're getting so sloppy with it, and it's becoming so common. 15 years from now, is it going to be like normal that what a journalist does is take what she thinks the guy meant to say and put quotes around that? You know, the inference is everything. Who cares what he actually said?
Oh, there was another great one. I don't think we have it here handy, but there was a clip going around where the governor of Utah is at the podium and Kash Patel is like off his left shoulder, and he's distraught, and he's saying, this is an exact quote. This is the spirit. And he says something like, I mean, for a while there, I was praying that let it be somebody who drove in from another state or, from out of the country. But no, it was one of us, and we just got to accept it. Okay. And again, he's like on the verge of tears. So clearly what he's saying there is he's the governor of the state where this horrific thing happened. And he was saying until we figured out who it was, he was hoping and praying it wasn't going to be one of his constituents, like somebody else came in, right? And he
identifies with his constituents, and he doesn't want to be tainted.
So somebody, grab that little clip and then put quotation mark, I was praying that it would be a Muslim or a migrant, and quotation mark, and then said, what a wild thing to say. And then that thing got like 104,000 hearts.
Sure would be a wild thing to say.
And then people challenged him, and he was LOLing them, saying, like that's not what he meant.
There were a few clips, I wish I'd grabbed them, where Benjamin Netanyahu was doing a similar thing, tying making it seem like it was a Muslim person that hated Israel that must have been behind the Kirk shooting. I mean, it was weird. It was, awkwardly phrased, but he's just, his press tour here is just trying to conflate the issue and making, again, no daylight between Charlie Kirk and the state of Israel. And so he said a few things like that. It was bizarre.
Okay, but I mean, so there you're saying Benjamin Netanyahu really was being what this other person was falsely attributing to the governor of Utah.
Yeah, exactly. He was insinuating, I'll tell you what, I don't know who it was that killed this guy, but I know he must have been a pro-Palestinian. I mean, obviously. Mm-hmm. It was just weird. Should we do the fun thing next or more serious stuff?
Yeah, I'm ready for the fun thing.
Let's do the fun thing. Do you want to set this clip up of our FBI Director, Kash Patel?
Let me just mention, so he had tweeted out like that Trump thanked Kash Patel and, we cracked this case in 33 hours or something. And I went in the comments and I did not see a single one. People later told me that one Israeli student came in and defended him or whatever, but I scrolled through 40 and everybody was just piling on Kash Patel about where are the Epstein files? You didn't do anything. His dad turned him in.
Yeah. Is his dad an FBI agent now?
Right. You only had, the two guys you did bring in were the wrong guys, all this stuff. And anyway, how's your Israeli spy girlfriend? That kind of stuff. So anyway, so he's having a rough week. But anyway, so here he is briefing was it Fox and Friends or something? Yeah. And this one thing, this clip was going around and I think it's prima facie funny, but also there is some serious element to it. But yeah, that's kind of, I think, the setup we need.
All right, here we go.
Got your other question. You had a written note. Did he write a written note before the assassination attempt? That's what the governor said yesterday. And what did that say? If you could. So what I'm able to say. I'm sorry. So what I'm able to say is I addressed it partially earlier. Is that the written note we believe did exist. And we have evidence to show what was in that note, which is, and I'm going to summarize, basically saying, the suspect wrote a note saying, I have the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it. That note was written before the shooting.
Evidence of its existence, we now have learned, existed before the shooting, was in the location in the suspect and partner's home. But we have since learned that the note, even though it has been destroyed, we have found forensic evidence of the note, and we have confirmed what that note says because of our aggressive interview posture at the FBI.
So, you sent that to me and asked me if I thought it was funny. And I burst out laughing, so I guess, yeah. You did, from the beginning of FBI Director Patel's remarks, you would think that they had engaged in some really sciencey forensic reconstruction of burnt pieces of parchment and ink extraction and put it together like a trillion-piece jigsaw puzzle, but then no, it was, what did he say, aggressive interrogation posture? So they forced that out of this guy?
Right, like did they say to the roommate, did you see what he wrote? Yeah, I kind of, what did it say? Put a light in his face. Or, I mean, so anyway, like my initial reaction is I thought, like, oh, the FBI got the note and then they put it on Pam Bondi's desk and, oh, now it's gone. So, but we remember what it said. So what was your take from that? Were you, in other words, what do you think he was saying happened? Because I saw rival interpretations. One was that, oh, we had the note and then it got destroyed, just like, they lost the front door from the Waco place, which, they actually claim happened. The front door that had all the evidence about who fired first. The FBI lost that door. I don't know if people know that. That's their official position, that they lost it.
I know. Room. It's insane.
Yeah, so with this one, I can be forgiven for thinking that what he was saying is, we had the note. I read it. It said, I did it. I had no funding from Israel whatsoever. I, a Mormon believe, whatever.
Yeah, I think.
And oops, we lost it. But trust me, that's what it said. And then others were saying, no, it was like in the Big Lebowski when the dude takes the thing and and then sees what the guy wrote because he ripped it off the top of the pad.
I think somewhere in some ex-ATF agent's downstairs man cave, there is the Branch Davidian's front door. But no, I don't think anybody ever saw this thing. I think they interrogated this guy about a note that he burned long before. And I assume the whole point is just to establish one more element of premeditation or something. And then maybe to point towards or away some particular motive.
Mm-hmm. So just the situation we're in, though, folks, that is awkward is that now, right, this is one more bit of evidence. Like, well, the kid's, because apparently the kid's not confessing.
Right.
He's saying, I didn't do it. But the dad turned him in and said, I think our son did. So again, that's weird. Like in terms of if you're wondering, did this guy do it? There is a bunch of weird circumstances. I didn't have time to go research it, so I don't want to repeat it because, like with him changing his clothes and like in one thing he's walking around clearly like with a gun down his pants and that. So there's just a bunch of weird stuff about the story. But again, if the family comes forward and they turn the guy in, like that seems pretty compelling. But now here is they're basically saying, oh yeah, we have a confession from the guy, but notice we can't show it to anybody because it's gone. But it's not just that you don't have to take our word for it. We have all this forensic evidence.
Yeah, how in the world do you categorize aggressive interrogation posture under forensic? It seems to be a little disingenuous.
Yeah. So they're trying to have their cake and eat it too, where we don't actually have something we can produce and let other people look at and say, wait a minute, that note, that paper, if you go do the chemical analysis, that came from Phoenix. That couldn't have been done.
Yeah.
So you can't do that because it doesn't exist. But yet, and also too, you would think Kash Patel would know more specifically what it said, not just, which I can summarize by saying, yes, I did it. I'm going to go kill Charlie Kirk. But, and again, I have received no funding from anyone in the Middle East.
Yeah, I think that's all just goofy and made up. There probably was no note. Now, I mean, if there was, the credibility of what we just heard is basically zero, right? Government guy says government thing, and their public choice theory is real. So. Well,
I mean, let me put it this way. I don't trust this guy anymore because of the Epstein stuff. Now, I'm not saying, and even though I made a joke about it before, like I don't know that his girlfriend is Mossad, or maybe he does a really good Sinatra or something at the karaoke bar. I mean, women fall for odd things all the time. So, I'm not saying that, but I just don't believe him. When he and Dan Bongino are just coming out and saying, no, we looked at the stuff, nothing there, just move on. I don't believe that. Again, that doesn't mean I think they're all in on it or whatever. It could be all kinds of stuff, but I don't just believe that. Yeah, so in my mind, that already establishes I don't think he's telling the truth, and so that here, if there's some crazy stuff going on behind the scenes, I don't trust him to come forward and say I just got to come clean with you folks. Like him telling me they had forensic evidence and this is what this note said, that means nothing to me. I don't update my Bayesian priors, if you want me to be dorky about it.
I hope that's not all they end up having on this kid when it goes to trial, and I hope it's the right guy.
And I hope nothing happens to the kid.
Right.
And we say that, but I mean, I remember when they arrested Epstein and people were joking like, oh, I hope he doesn't die. And like, it was inconceivable to me that would happen, because I thought, can you imagine how many people would get in trouble if Epstein died while he was in custody? And zero. That's how many.
Well, this guy has a different set of enemies. Let's just say that. But I get your point. If he dies in custody, oh my goodness. So I had a final thought I wanted to run by you. We've spoken about Charlie Kirk before, you and I. I pretty much knew who he was, what he was all about, what his mission was, but I didn't understand what scale he was operating, like how big he was.
Same here.
I looked into it a little bit. Before Charlie Kirk was assassinated, Turning Point affiliates on college campuses there were about 2,100 of them, representing about 250,000 students. Right after he was assassinated, they received an influx of 32,000 applications for a new affiliate. If that were to scale, and obviously it wouldn't, but if it did scale, that would be around 4 million students represented. I looked on X just to get an idea of, how big the social media presence was. Charlie himself had just under 6 million followers. Turning Point USA had 1.2 million. Turning Point Action, which must be some more active advocacy group, had 200,000 followers. Turning Point UK had 250,000 followers. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Wait, was TP Action about the country of action?
That's right. And also the continent of action. Geography. You're welcome. So my point being that Charlie Kirk had already amassed a whole bunch of political and cultural energy in this planet. And it's youthful energy, exactly the kinds of people who do things. They don't just sit in their couch and complain and fart. They go out and they do activism. So he was already huge, and his death, I think, 10 or 20x'd the amount of energy that's being infused into what he is all about, as indicated by that massive influx of Turning Point affiliate applications. So what I know about human energy is it goes someplace. It's not just going to disappear. Good or ill, it's going to go somewhere. And you've seen a ton of videos about people on the right galvanized by this, wanting to come together and do something. A bunch of videos of modern leftists openly denouncing the left and the Democratic Party because they're so sickened by what they're seeing. And then the lunatics we've been discussing who are dancing in the streets and saying, yeah, here's a list of more people that we want to see murdered, because yay, one down, 1,000 to go. Can't kill enough Nazis. And a whole bunch of people on the right are also literally calling for a J. Edgar Hoover COINTELPRO style infiltration of leftist organizations and send them all, pull them all up against the wall sort of behavior, forgetting, as they do every time, that all of these government powers end up getting used against them. And so I just want to run it by you after that whole big setup. Where is the Charlie Kirk energy going to go? In what direction? What should we guard against? In what way can we channel it towards productive ends, things that might save us rather than things that might destroy us. What do you think?
I thought you were lining up for a huge push for the SwanBrothers.com.
I wish.
Seriously, you know, they got you 4 million new members. Where can you get some pens? Just as you're going through that, I mean, I saw Matt Walsh. I think he's been handling this pretty well. I wish I had chosen different words. When Patel announced that they had somebody, I think it was the second wrong guy that they had.
Yeah.
And Walsh said something like, do the most severe thing possible to him, or something like that. Like, he didn't say boil him in acid, but he didn't, you know, and so I kind of actuallyed him and said, do you mean like after there's a trial and he's found guilty? You know, but anyway, I probably could have chosen my words better. But there's people saying stuff like, yeah, you know, guys like, you know, Tucker and Matt Walsh now, they're probably going to choose their words more carefully now. And they should be afraid. And so to his credit, Walsh like retweeted that and said, I absolutely will not change what I'm saying, you ghoul. But, you know, and so that's the correct response or whatever. But I mean, you know, you and I, Adam, are not worried that someone's going to take us out because we're too much of a threat, right? That's not going to happen anytime soon. And so, like, to us, it's kind of academic, whereas, you know, some of those bigger name people, like, that's got to be weird. Like, I wonder if their, you know, spouses are telling them, you know, do you really think you should go do these XYZ events, or, you know, you're going to hire more security?
Can I quickly interject?
Yeah.
We're recording this on September 15th, Monday. I was looking forward to seeing Dave Smith coming to Las Vegas on the 19th, and he just canceled. And he said, I mean, I don't know if it's specifically just afraid of, you know, insanity, but he canceled. So, you know, you shoot somebody, you and I aren't going to go turtling up because we're nobody. I mean, I'm nobody. But, you know, it is having repercussions. You know, people are...
I just thought Dave heard you were going and then thought this is going to be so awkward. We were on the cruise together and he's going to think we can hang out. And
that's a scandalous rumor, Bob Murphy. Scandalous.
So I didn't realize that, but yes. So there's these elements, and you know, and Charlie's widow came out, and you know, she's doing so. It's people are vying for it. The problem too now is like there's all these fake quotes floating around, right? Like I've seen people say Ben Shapiro said, "I'm going to pick up his bloodied mic," and then others saying, "No, he didn't say that," you know. And so I haven't gone and researched stuff. To his credit, again, Matt Walsh, I thought had the right take when he said, you know, people are asking who's going to replace him. And no, it's like when Rush Limbaugh died. Nobody replaced him. No one's going to replace Charlie Kirk. You know, he was what he was, and you can't just do our thing. So, you know, that to me, that's obviously the correct response in terms of that. But yes, both sides are reacting poorly. Again, I think the left initially was just awful. The right was understandably reacting to that. And then, like I said, I was almost checking my watch about at some point they're going to cross the line and then they're going to start trying to cancel people that, you know, really did it. And then, I mean, stuff about, have you seen the thing about revoking passports for people who criticize Israel and all kinds of stuff? So
I have. There's
a lot that, unfortunately, I think is going to try to, you know, jam through this while everybody's all disoriented. And then, of course, too, while all this is going down, is Thomas Massie needs one more vote for his releasing the Epstein file stuff. So, anyway, it's I'm not really saying anything definitive, but I think this is a bigger deal than we even realize, and it just kind of hasn't fully sunk in yet.
I greatly fear, you know, another huge theme in the right-wing response to all this is that in the generic right-wing movement towards nationalism and closed borders and opposing the left in a generic right-wing way, not only was Charlie Kirk, you know, a hugely effective voice in a very important demographic, but he was, quote-unquote, the good one.
Right.
And I could easily imagine some truly horrible people riding the wave of energy that just got uncorked by Charlie Kirk getting killed. And who knows where that goes?
Yep. I have to say, because I have been not saying much about him, and if anything, I was critical. You know who surprised me was Nick Fuentes. Did you see his stuff?
I did.
And it's particularly one, there's a clip, it was a short one, folks, where he was, and let me just give the disclaimer. For years, I have been saying, I don't get why people like it. Like, I don't even think he's funny. Like, he, you know, if he's a shock jock or whatever, I don't even, and so I truly did not even get the appeal, besides, you know, him saying stuff that is objectively offensive and whatnot. But he had a thing, in case folks didn't see it, where he came out and said, I categorically reject any violence that people might have. If you're my follower, if you call yourself my follower, but my fan, and you're planning on, you know, doing something to get back at them for what they did to Charlie, then no, do not. That's a immoral. And he went on a whole thing about, if you're a Christian, you know, part of this life is suffering, as Jesus suffered on the cross, and we're up there with him. And I mean, it was really, it was moving. And I was like, what the heck? Like, one might have thought that, oh yeah, someone who's going to try to exploit this is Fuentes, and he's going to try to, and he didn't do that, especially because, you know, apparently Charlie Kirk had done things, you know, to kind of keep him in a corner, like, you know. So anyway, I have to say I was pleasantly surprised, you know, and guys like Dave Smith and stuff too, of course, coming out and just being very clear, like, whoa, like, we cannot retaliate. And I saw people, like, there were tough guys on Twitter like this is war, and a lot of people were telling him, what are you going to do? No, this isn't war. We got to calm down. This is going to get out of hand.
Yeah, when it becomes war, it's not going to be on Twitter. I did see what Nick Fuentes did, but my opinion of him is is so biased. I just couldn't. He said the right things, but that's also what you would say if you were hoping that you could maybe jump in front and take Charlie Kirk's place. And
yeah, again, I'm not saying, oh, so I misjudged him. I'm just saying I was surprised by that clip. That I had, to that point, I had never seen a clip from him where I even understood, why is he popular.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
whereas I've seen other people that I don't care for, but I can watch it and say, oh, I get why they have a big fan base, because, you know, that's not my cup of tea or whatever, or I don't agree with those politics, or I don't like that kind of humor, but I get it. Whereas with him, it wasn't, I just didn't even get it until this one where I got like, oh yeah, if he gets going on a tear, then yeah, if you get into it, I could see why he's got a lot of people that want to tune into him.
Well, it is a tragedy that this guy got murdered the way he did. I watched a press release put out, video release by his wife, and it was poignant and beautiful. And at the end, they showed a few clips, and one was some backstage event where his little 3-year-old girl, you know, runs across the stage and daddy and jumps into his arms, and just about broke my heart. Yeah, this whole thing's been bugging me for this whole week. And
even there, if I may, did you see this stuff? Like, so yeah, she's at the podium, you know, giving the talk about Charlie and his legacy, and then they grab a still shot where she's, you know, stone faced, and they're look at, she's just as filled with hate as her husband.
Oh
was.
My God, no!
And it's
I
like,
didn't
are
see
you? Yo, yeah, it's just shocking. Like, yeah, I mean, what? You murder her husband 3 days earlier, and then look at how mad she is. Jeez, what's up with these conservatives? They're so triggered.
Reminds me of all the stills they used to show of Ron Paul anytime they were talking about in 08 and 2012, trying to make him look deranged or something. Come on, people. This is not honest. Our time's about up. Do you have any more pearls of wisdom?
No, just that let's hope things settle. But like I say, unfortunately, I do think that this is a bigger deal than we've even fully comprehended.
It's so weird, man. I mean, on one hand, I'm like totally with you. Please let things settle. On the other hand, I think things have to make massive structural changes, you know, like abolish the government. Like the way things are going, they just can't go. And that's why I said I hope this energy around this movement, I hope the crazy parts don't bottle it. I hope sensible people get that wind in their sails and do something productive with it.
My
you
guess
know where
is...
else you could do productive things? Go to theswanbrothers.com/cross.
Yeah. Just real quickly to answer your question from before, my guess is it would be, you know how there was like the Ron Paul movement when he was running, like he built up this huge coalition of people, but then once the second run ended, it kind of splintered off.
Yeah.
If I had to guess, not that I have any confidence, but that would be my guess that this thing, without him leading it, it's going to splinter and different people will, grab different elements. Like, yeah, the problem with Charlie was he was too nice. He was too much of a pushover. And yeah, we love the, telling the gays what was up, but you should have been stronger, toxic empathy and he was nice to them and look what that got him. He wanted to have civil discourse. Look what they did. So therefore we got to be hard ass. And then the other, side, well, see, yeah, he should have just been all about love and and outreach, and let's just overlook our doctrinal differences. And, and so I'm imagining it'll just splinter off into people who want 1/10 of what he was doing, and then they're going to go off in that direction, take 10% of them.
So I shouldn't worry about one enormous tsunami. We're going to get 20 smaller ones, and 2 of them will be absolutely pathological.
Just like the Ron Paul movement? Is that where you're going with that?
Is that fair? I mean, I guess. Were there undesirable people who had their sails filled
Look,
by
I already
what?
said nice things about Nick Fuentes in this. I'm not going to say more stuff that totally gets me even in bigger trouble. So no.
How do you know who I'm talking about?
Everything is great. Anyone who was a libertarian or Austrian is awesome. They did nothing wrong.
All right. I endorse that statement. Thank you very much, Bob. This was good, if not great, because the subject matter was what it was. I am sorry, folks, that I put out 2 episodes right after this happened, and you'd think I was just on some Shangri-La island just criticizing right-wing extremism and government overreach, ignoring a huge thing that happened, a huge, horrible thing. So sorry about that, guys. Thank you, Bob, and we will catch you on the next crossover.
So long, everybody.